Hello everyone and welcome back to another Graphic 45 brand ambassador project. Today I'm going to show you how I've used one of the new staples, the 2-in-1 tunnel and pyramid chipboard albums, to make this tunnel book. I used the collector's edition, the 8x8 Imagine, to do this. Now the great thing about this kit is it's the tunnel and a pyramid album. So when I made it, the waste actually made this pyramid album as well. And not only was it the chipboard, but also the paper. So the cutout elements went from this album to the other. So if you do it in this order, do your tunnel card first, you can actually use the leftovers and you can actually get both albums made using just one 8x8 pad and even with some papers left over. But today we're just concentrating on the pyramid album. And when you get your pyramid album kit, if I take it out, you can see I've already started prepping just to save some time. It's an 8x8 album and there are instructions on the inside on how to make them. So there's your tunnel album and there's your pyramid album assembly. And you do get some other elements with it. But I wanted to show you a different way. So I'm actually going to be using some Cool Katz tiger tape. And all this is a papery tape, which is used in framing. So professional framers, when you go to photographs, framed and everything, this is what they use on the back to hold it in place. So it's a papery construction tape. So it's acid lignin free because it's to do with photographs. And it's really, really strong as well. So despite it being papery, it's a very, very strong adhesive. So it holds your albums together. So what you get in your kit is a bunch of 8x8 pieces of grey board. And they've been precision cut so that each piece has a frame for your tunnel album and then a piece then for your pyramid album. And you do get 2 full 8x8 pieces as well, so you've got a back for each of your albums. So that then would go to my pyramid album. This one would go to my pyramid album and so on. And you can see I've already done the rest for you. So you can see how your pyramid album would work up in size. So I'll put that aside and one of the 8x8s because that would make my pyramid, but I'm actually going to use this for the tunnel album. But it's not part of it. So the collection I'm going to be using today will be The Beach is Calling. So I thought that would be nice to celebrate the summer. And so let's get going. So I'll keep referring to that, so I'm going to keep it to the side. So I've already done a few of the pages. So that's all I do is I cover 3 sides. And I don't bother with this side because that's the part we're going to actually build our spine with. So we're going to be covering that anyway with the black tape. And I'm also covering the inside of each of them. So it does take a bit of time. Well, it's the same process, so I didn't bother to it. But page 1 and 2 are just slightly different. So I've kept them back. With the inside frames, what I do, I take my tape and I measure and cut it to the size I want. Now this tape does tear as well, so you can rip it out. And what I'm going to do is just work my way around 4 sides. Now I've got a little wrinkle here because I cut it a bit too tight. That doesn't bother me because I'm going to be covering most of it anyway. And when I use my Teflon tool, it sort of irons it out. So I'm going to try and get it a bit more accurate this time. We'd rather it be a little bit longer than shorter because you don't want the grey board showing. So I'm placing it half on and half off, and then just pulling it over and sticking it down. And then you can iron out any wrinkles with your tape. Now, this is wonderful because it is a square. So all sides are going to be exactly the same, so I don't have to worry about which way up is it going to go at the end. So again, folding it over, just pulling it taut. That one went on nice and smooth. And then the last one. So I did this then on all of my aperture pieces. So the only one you don't do this on is your back cover. So that's great, but when you cover your piece with paper, you're going to see those little corners. So just take some more of your tape and just cut some rectangles and just place them diagonally there. Alternatively, you could just take a black pen and you could just colour in those corners, but the tape just sort of ties everything in. So I've covered the four corners, but I also need to do the back. So there's one piece left. So I'm probably adding too much here. I don't really need that much, but you can see it better on the film. But this tape does go a long, long way. So that's why I just use that. So there's one done. And I'm going to do my other one straight away. Now this is a very thin one, so this is probably the trickiest one to do. And this is the reason why this page is slightly different to all the others. Because what we're going to do is actually glue these two together to make one page. So every other one is a single page. This one is a double, just for strength. So I'm just pulling it. Oh, I left that a bit long on this side, so I'm just going to trim it off. There we go. And then final one. Here. And pulling it over. And then just hide the corners. So this time I'm going to cut my tape in half because I don't want such big pieces now because it's a much smaller frame, this one. Oh, Still too big. And there. And turn it over. The last two. Like so. So what we've done here is decorated the inside apertures for each one. And now I'm going to cover the 3 together. But with this one, we're actually going to have to cover the second one now, because I won't be able to do it afterwards. So have a think about what papers you're going to do. And just to make it easier, I've already come up with a cutting list for us. So I'm going to grab my trimmer, and this cutting list is for your patterned papers. It's for where to start and cut each of these pages so that the aperture is in the center. And originally I thought this was going to be quite a hard job, but actually the measurements with Graphic 45 were quite easy. So I'm cutting my paper 1/4 of an inch less than my album. So my album was 8 by 8. So I'm cutting all my pages to 7 3/4 by 7 3/4. Then we've got 2 of everyone, and we've got an align a column here. So for my cover, I've cut it to 7 3/4 by 7 3/4. I'm going to now align the right hand side with 3/4 of an inch. So 1, 2, 3/4 of an inch. And it says to cut from 3/4 down to 7. So 3/4 of an inch is, there's half. So there's my 3/4 of an inches. So from 3/4 of an inch down to 7. So I've cut that. Then I'm going to rotate and do the same on all 4 sides. Down to 7. So 3/4 of an inch down to 7. I've got to say, if you do want this cutting guide, head to Facebook, type in Paper Crafting with Paul, and you'll find my Facebook group. And in the file section, I'll have put a PDF so you can actually print this off yourself. So I've done 3/4 of an inch down to 7, aligning every time at 3/4 of an inch. Now this piece of paper, I won't be using on this album, but I've been keeping them all aside because this actually is used then to cover my pockets, or the, oh sorry, not that one. It's used to cover my pyramid album. So that's how you manage to get 2 albums out of 1. On every other one, you'll see later on, that's what I do. That's all I need to do. But on this one, I then, there will be another cover piece. So I will do 2. I won't do 1 now because of the front. Then with one of them, on the 1 inch side, I'm going to line it at 1/4 of an inch. And I'm going to cut from 1/4, which is there, down to 7.5. I'm going to do that on all 4 sides again. So a line at 1/4 of an inch. I'm go between the 1/4 and 7.5. So again, a line at a 1/4, down to 7.5, and again on the last piece. So it's a very fine border we're creating here with these lovely seashell paper. So there we go. So I'm just going to take my distress ink. I'm just going to ink the inside of my aperture. I'm not going to bother with the outside. That's going to be hidden under my grey board. The last one. So with this, just see which way, yep, it's that way around. I'm going to place that off to the side because I won't need that until later on. I'm going to glue that just around my aperture. Now, it's only on the cover piece you're going to be doing this. All the others are far simpler. So I'm just gluing my paper. So I'm looking at my aperture and I'm just lining my paper along it. And then what will happen is we're going to add that on, and then the piece we cut will go on the outside after we've taped it together. So you'll have a pattern continuation going through. So now I can do that. I can glue this frame onto this one. So I'm just going to lift it up so I can get it nice and straight. There we go. So let me just bring in this frame. I'm going to try and match it up again just so I know which is the top. I did forget to mark it. A good idea would have been to mark them, I think. No, I think I probably chose the most complicated of all the papers to match up. Ah, yeah, there we are. There's the shell. That's the one I was looking at. So that is the way up. So what I'm going to do now is use my tape on 3 sides. I'm not going to bother with the left-hand side there. And for all the other pages, you would do this step again. So you'd cover the middle like I've just done. And then cover the 3 sides. So all I'm doing is I've got the tape, the sticky side up, and I'm placing the bottom of the album across my tape. So then I'm just extending my tape and bringing my album around. So this is my right-hand side of the cover, and then this would be the top. I'm just going to trim off my tape. So it's so much harder to do this on camera than it is just to do it when it's just you in your craft room. So I've got my tape now wrapped around the 3 sides. I'm just going to take my scissors, so a nice sharp point to my scissors, and I'm snipping a little V towards the corner. So I've done that on those 2. I just need to do it on the back as well. So that's why I'm holding it in the air, because I don't want to place it down, otherwise it's going to squash the tape onto the chipboard before I'm ready. There we go. And now I'm just going to press the tape onto those 3 sides. So I'm just taking my fingers, just running them across. And now I'm going to use my finger and thumb, and I'm just going to pinch them over the edge. As I said, on all the other pages, you've just got that 1 thickness of chipboard, but we've got 2 on this one. So I'm going to do the same then on the other side. And then I'm just sort of ironing it down, and the same, pinching it over, and then ironing it down. You can see I'm starting in the center all the time and working out. There we go. So that is then your cover piece done. And you will carry on then, just working your way through, taping the inside, and then placing it down for the 3 sides, and again, till you get to that small square. And then on the last one, this is the back cover. Of course, you're not going to have your aperture on that, so you just cover the 3 sides. And that then is pages prepped. And now it's time to start putting them together. So this was quite experimental, and I learned a lot from doing this one. So you can see that page is twice the thickness of everything else. And there were times when I kept my tape a bit too tight, which meant I was getting a bit of pulling, which was keeping my pages popping up. But after time, it has flattened down. So I've learned a lesson. We need a little tiny gap, which is why I'm also bringing in my 8x8, the back piece for my pyramid album as well. That's going to be useful for me now. So I'm going to start off with the back. Now, usually we add our tape to the back of this and bring it over when I'm making my covers. But this time, I'm going to be attaching it to the front. Now, on the back piece, there is no front and back yet, so it doesn't matter which side you do it. So I'm going to place it just so that it's half on the grey board and half off it. And I'm just going to trim it off. And I want it to be the same height as my page. So I'm cutting out a little V, and then from the other side, see, I can peel it off a little bit. I'm going to do my V to match it. And again, I'm going to cut to the top of my grey board, and then from the other side, just cut a little V. So it's like a little arrowhead both sides. You see, so it's an arrowhead there, arrowhead there. Then I'm going to take my next page. Now at the moment, it doesn't matter which way I'm doing it. I'm going to put my grey board down the centre. Now this is perfect for this because it'll give us that little gap, but it's also exactly the same size as our pages. So when I bring this in, I can help myself. I can butt it up against it and line up the top and bottom of it. So I've created a little space in between. So that's by the time I've added my papers and elements, I'm going to need that little piece of thickness. So I'm opening it up and sort of keeping that gap open. So you can see there's grey board, bit of black and grey board, and that is actually still sticky. So what I could do is I could take a piece of tape over it and that would keep it apart. But now I want to bring in my next page. I'm just going to go there. So my tape needs to go in here to create that hinge. So I'm going to cut this the height. And if you manage to get it exactly the same height, you probably don't even need to do the V. So I'm going to flip it over and flip this over. And again, bring in that spacer. And I'm going to bring the album. Oh, well, hang on, let me tell you one thing first. So with this, remember now we've got that little space. I'm actually going to pull it back a bit. So that exposed bit, that's sticky, because that's where the hinge is. And that is what I'm going to put on. So I'm lining up the bottom one. So let's bring in my spacer. So butt that up against my new page. So I'm using my finger just to pull it back so I can see. And I'm going to line it up and press it down. And then you can see that's rolling. That's what I do want. I didn't actually get that spot on, so maybe I should notch it. There we go. There we go. So you see, that is the inside hinge. So again, we've got a bit of black space in between. So I'm rubbing it, so I'm sort of trying to get rid of the stickiness with my fingers. So now we're going to get the next one up. So the tape needs to go there. So I'm going to flip it over. And because it's square, I don't need to flip that one over. Ooh, that wasn't enough tape on the right hand side there. You may have noticed it was a bit short. So let's flip it over and let's get some new sticky. There we go. So let's just cut it a little bit and let's cut that V this time. Go. I don't want the same mistake as last time, so I'm just gonna gently V it towards there, pull it back, just lift up the tape a little bit and cut it. So let's have a look. So that is my next page. That's where I want the hinge, and I want it to stick onto there. So let's pull it over. And now I'm going to pull both these pages back. So I'm exposing a little bit of that bottom one. Placing this as close as I can get it. There we go. So I'm peeling it back to expose that bottom page, lining it up and pressing down. And you can see it's the same process, but you can start to see your tunnel starting to take shape. So at the moment, I've got quite a bit of space there, but by the time you add your papers and things, it'll bring it all together even more. So let's just get rid of some of that tackiness. So we've only got 2 more to go. So I want my tape there. Again, I've done it again. That wasn't enough tape. But why am I not doing it the way I usually do? This is how I usually take off a piece and stick it down. So you just need enough just to grab it there. There we go. And it doesn't need to be straight or anything. Peel that one. Oh, no, we want it that way, don't we? So let's peel it back. Oh, I did forget to cut it, didn't I? Were you shouting at me there as well? What I'll do, I'll just cut it straight. And just cut another piece just to hide that bit. So, if you do mistakes, this tape is so forgiving. Just need to trim off just a tiny bit more. Or I can take off quite a bit and just use the tape towards the edge. Very good stuff. There we go. So then that is my next page, just keeping them apart as well. And then we've just got our final piece. So that piece I already know is that side because it's got to go that way. Again, why am I not doing it my usual way? I have no idea. My brain has gone dead. Just enough. There we go. So I'm just going to cut that V. So you can see I've done it a different way on virtually every page. There is no right and wrong way of this. There's so many different ways of using this tape. Right, so that's that one. Flip this over, peeling it all back, using my spacer. So this time I've got a nice thick, because I got the double thing to lean that against. So I'm holding them all and sort of spreading them out there and lining them up. There we go. So that is your spine, so created with your tape. Let's have a little zoom in so you can see how you've got your grey board, black tape, grey board, black tape. And yes, it is still a bit tacky. Let's come back out. But you can see your tunnel has been prepared. So to hide that stickiness, what I'm going to do is use more tape. So I'm going to cut a piece to length. Just trim a tiny bit off that one. So I'm resting it on the table. Make sure they're all separated. There we go. And folding it over. You see it wasn't wide enough. So you got two options. You can actually, with Cool Katz, get even thicker tape. If you're lucky enough, you can actually get the extra wide one. That's brilliant stuff. So you can get the extra wide one, or just use a second piece. So this time, Just putting it on the front. And again, making sure they're separated, just fold it over. So a bit over here, so I'm going to trim it off, but I'm actually a little bit under there. So I'm going to cut a length of this, and I'm going to place it on the top, because bear in mind, most of this tape is actually going to be hidden. So there we go. And any little grey boards showing, you can just use a little black pen and cover it. And there we go. You've got now your little album with a little space in between each page, a nice edge. So actually I didn't like that showing there, so I'll just keep covering it until I'm happy. And this will just keep strengthening my album too. There we go. So that is how to construct the album. So I'm going to just place everything aside, and I'm going to get everything now to start covering. Okay, so I've now got everything ready for decorating. So I've got my papers chosen, which was The Beach is Calling. And I've got the 8x8. As I said, this is going to cover not just the tunnel one, but the pyramid one also. This is where my pattern paper cutting guide is going to be essential. So as I said, go to Paper Crafting with Paul, which is my Facebook group. Have a look in the files section for Graphic 45 Tunnel Album, and you should find this, and it's just a PDF you can just print off then, or just take a screenshot right now of that. So hopefully you've seen that now. Okay, so if you remember, we've already done this piece because we did this when we did our cover. So that's all I've done whilst I was getting my papers ready was I've taken my black distress ink and I've just distressed the paper, the edges of the paper, just to hide any white core that might have been showing. And I'm just going to, I'll have to check if I've lined it up. The shell paper was lovely, but is it? Yes, it is. So I used that big shell up there as my guide. So I'm just going to ease that into position. And use my Teflon tool very gently because this one is quite thin. You've got to be careful with it. So that is number one cover. So I needed to do two of them. I cut a 3/4 and 3/4, and then with one of them I did that. So the second one, I took this lovely Beach is Calling one, and I did exactly the same as I did there. So I cut it to 7 3/4, aligned it at 3/4 of an inch, cut from 3/4 of an inch down to 7 on all four sides, and I got this. And that frame will fit us exactly there. So we can glue this straight down. So again, I took my distress ink and I went around the inside and the outside edges. I don't know why I make it look so awkward today. Because normally I would have just moved everything out of the way to do this on a flat surface. Why I haven't done it today, I don't know. So there we go. So I'm just lining it so the aperture is nicely framed. Take my bone folder and just press it all down. That also helps spread the glue underneath as well. So there we go. Then everything we're going to cut in twos now. Because there's a front and a back to everything. So number 2, we cut again, every single one 7 3/4 by 7 3/4. So I've done the front one, so I lined it at 1 1/4, cut from 1 1/4 down to 6 1/2. So I've already done that, and this time I've gone for the same paper going all the way across the pages. On my Imagine one, I think I was mixing and matching a lot. So it depends what you want. Do you want uniformity like I'm going for this time? Or do you prefer more the mix and match? So again, I'm lining it around the aperture. There we go. But as I said, there is a second one of these to do. So for each of these pages, I've already cut the front one, and then the back one is exactly the same. So this time now, I'm going to go for, I've been writing down the papers I was going to use if it wondered what the notes were. So the light blue words. So now I'm going to show you what I do. Let me move my album out of the way. That surely is going to help me, isn't it? So I'm going to cut it at 7 3/4 by 7 3/4. So it's just 1/4 of an inch less than my album size, which is 8 by 8. So we're on this page 2s. So I need 2 of them. 1 1/4 is where am I lining it. So I've got 1 1/4 inches on my right hand side here. And I'm going to cut from 1 1/4 to 6 1/2. So 1 1/4 is there. Pressing down, 6 1/2. Turning it around, 1 1/4 to 6 1/2. 1 1/4. So I lined it at 1 1/4, cut at 1 1/4, 6 1/2. So every time you align it, that is actually, if you look, the same measurement as where you start your cut as well. So 1 1/4. And what I've done is measured it, so I'm stopping 1 1/4 from the bottom. And then that gives us our aperture. And we're just going to take our distress ink. I'm just going to get rid of that white core, because we're working on that black tape. Any whiteness would show up. This is a good way of just hiding that. And again, that piece we've cut out, that is going into my pile, ready to make a pyramid album. So that's going pyramid album pile. Back of this has got that lovely stripes. That would make good pockets for the bottom of my album. And just put some glue down the middle of each side. My album back, and you see that fitted there. So that's exactly the same paper cut as that one. So they're both exactly the same. I'm just going to take this, and then this now is page 3. So I'm going to cut 2 of them, again 7 3/4, from 1 3/4 down to 6. And that's what it's going to look like. So you can see I've done my matching papers going across both sides. So when I close it, you can sort of start to see how it's going through. So I've gone from the linens through the light blue into some dark blue next. So let's turn it over, and the paper I just showed you. So again, 7 3/4. And for the page 3 ones, 1 3/4 in, so I've still got room on this to go to 1 3/4. So I know I'm starting at 1 3/4 and I'm stopping at 6. So 1 3/4 aligning, 1 3/4 down to 6, 1 3/4, cut from 1 3/4 down to 6, aligning at 1 3/4, cutting at 1 3/4 and stopping at 6. And again, then the central piece goes to my pyramid album, and this one is going to be glued on. So once you've got the initial technique, it's just a case of repeat, repeat, repeat. But hopefully having those measurements printed off will help you a lot. That was the biggest task for me. And I did set aside a night to work it all out, and it actually came together really, really quick. I was surprised. So thank you, Graphic 45, for making it such an easy album to work out. So again, we're just going to glue those edges and the middle. And glue the edges and the middle. And this goes on the right hand side. And then I've already done one of page 4's. It's getting easier to glue with them now because they're not so small. I do when I'm doing it on my own. I'm not trying to get on camera, it's just so much easier again. And you see, especially if you've got that cutting guide, you can sort of just get into a rhythm with this, and you can get your album done quite quickly. The only thing is, I don't know how this is going to turn out with the flow and everything, because this is the first time I'm doing it with these papers. But yeah, you can see how it's getting darker as we go in. So we've done page 1, 2, 3. So this is page 4. We need to do the back of page 4. So page 4 is the swimsuits one. So again, every page was 7 3/4. So 7 3/4. And page 4 is 2 1/4 down to 5 1/2. Now I can't use this side anymore, so I'm going to have to use my left hand side. So 2 1/4, and again 2 1/4 is where I start. So 2 1/4 down to 5 1/2. Rotate it. 2 1/4 down to 5 1/2. 2 1/4 and 5 1/2. It doesn't matter if I go up or down. 2 1/4 by 5 1/2. It's just our pieces are getting smaller, but again, that's going to my pyramid album. I'm just gonna get that distressing. So how I chose my papers was, they sort of got more intricate pattern-wise as I went in. So the front ones were quite vague because you're not going to see much of it. But as we get in, you're seeing more and more of the paper. So that's why I chose this, because you can actually see the swimsuits. I didn't want to just have parts of swimsuits. Otherwise, I wouldn't have known what on earth this paper was. Okay, let's move that aside. And let's glue. And the last one. Okay, see it. So this is the left-hand side. And then, again, using the same paper on the right-hand side. So you can see it coming out to the, this was the last aperture. Design it down. And the last one we're going for is the same one we started off with here. Oh, just replace my blade. There we go. So 7 3/4 by 7 3/4. This time we're lining at 2 3/4. So we're starting at 2 3/4 and ended at 5. So it's quite a small one this time. So 2 3/4. 2 3/4 down to 5. And the last one, 2 3/4. Starting at 2 3/4 and stopping at 5. So just taking out that little tiny bit from the middle. Down the front. One last bit of inking. And I think maybe I could have used a nice blue distressing instead of black soot, couldn't I? That could be nice as well. And I'm just going to glue this. Let's bring it back in. Ooh, let's make sure it's the right way up. And then the last piece, I thought about carefully, because you're going to see the centre. Your eye is going to be drawn to that middle. So what do you want to show in the middle? And luckily enough, this page had that sentiment, the beach is calling, right in the middle. So I trimmed off, I think it was off the left-hand side. So look, have I got another sheet of this? Yes, I have. Yeah, so I took off the left and the top, which sort of brought it up and to the left a bit. And then that meant that that little sentiment actually worked out in the middle. But if it doesn't, what you can do is take a plain of paper and stick like a journal card or something. But you want your middle to be like the focal point, because your eye is going to be drawn to it just by the nature of this book. So before I put it down, let's see if I need to adjust. Yeah, let's just bring it up a bit. And like so. There we go. So now we've completed all the bases of our album. And it's up to you now how you're going to decorate it. I've got a couple of little tips I'm going to be using, but up to you totally. So I'm going to go through the rest of my papers and see what I've got which has got any borders and things. So this one had that natural strip across the bottom, and I thought that would be nice along here. So this is going to make a little tuck spot for me on the bottom. So I'm going to put glue on both sides and across the bottom, leaving the top without glue. That means then we can tuck things inside. So I've already done the black distress ink on that. So it's a nice border, but actually it's a pocket. So we can move back here. And I noticed that these two papers had this postage stamp one at the bottom. So I thought we could use that. And actually they can go across both. Or shall I use that on the shallower ones? Actually, yeah, let's use those postage stamp on the smaller ones. So this one, I'm not going to put anything on. It's just too small for pockets. So that's going to be more for decorative purposes. These two. So let's have a look. Now there are borders here, which I might want to keep for 8 by 8. So let's cut off that top strip. Then we can cut off this side piece. And now we've got to that. So let's cut it off. So that's given me quite a nice little pocket there. And I'm going to do the same for this other sheet. So I'm going to cut off that title piece, because that is my complete border there. So let's try and keep it as complete as I can. Then take off that darker strip, and then and of course it needs to be 7 3/4, because that's what we've cut all our papers to. So let's have a look at what we are. Oh, that's pretty good. It is 7 3/4. So these are going to be quite small little pockets. There's my ink. Here we go. So let's just glue the sides and the bottom. There we go. And this one, I probably wouldn't put much stuff in it. So I'm going to glue this down just as a complete piece, just because it's so narrow as it is. We're just going to place that as a little just decorative strip. There we go. So that is usable. And what you can do is take some of the journal card papers. You can see this one. And I've used my tag die just to decorate it, and the back, these come from there. I ties that one didn't fit onto the tag, so I used the back instead, just for a little journal space. And this is where you start now to tuck things in. So we've got pockets there. We can add more pockets there. We've already got a pocket here. The back I've left as it is because it's quite a big image as it is there. I've got strips I can add, pockets, but what you can also do then is add some fussy cutting. So on this Imagine one, all those roses have been fussy cut then and sort of just built up. I didn't stick any onto the outer one, but I've tucked them inside there. And then we've got some pockets, so you can see it's a small one. This time I've gone for sort of different things on every page. And some hot air balloons. And again, thinking about what you're going to see in the middle. So let's have a look. Instead of using fussy cutting, because I couldn't really find a page which I really fancied fussy cutting out of. The shells would have been a nice one, but it would have taken me ages. So I've got the ephemera pack. So let's have a look at what we can use here. So we've got some bunting, and these are just too big for my tin. I've got to say, the ephemera pieces in this kit are huge. So let's have a look. So you see that's all the ephemera pieces you get, which is quite a lot. And I've already used some on other G45 projects for assignments. So that's the tag I've got coming up. So I've also got the rub-ons I could have used as well, actually thinking about it. I do like him, but I like them too, but they're a different size. In fact, what I could do is get some perspective. So I'm going to do an L shape, a reverse L. So it's going to make a little tuck spot, I think. And I can put it on page 2. Down in the left hand corner. And this, it's not, to what? Let's chop off the bottom of the surfboard. And maybe just chop off a little bit off the roof. Now be careful where you're adding, yes, that's better. Careful where you're adding your glue, because you don't want to go in where the aperture is. So I'm going to put a bit there, and I can put some there. I can put some more on the there we go. So although it looks like it, they actually got some depth going there. Let's should we add the beach? So does it go in the middle, or does it go diagonal? So we could, let's go diagonal. And I'm sort of just tucking it under. There is a little bit of space there. That's going to be a bit too big, isn't it, with this perspective? I mean, there are words we can sort of add as we go through. You can have them glued, hanging off, or just keep it simple. So I said, that's all I'd probably do now to finish this off, is make some more tags, cut out some of the journal tags. You can cut them out so that you've got your journal spaces, and you can sort of just start adding them. So I'd add small ones where you've got the big apertures, and the further back you go, a piece of the ephemera, you can tuck pieces in like so. So we've got like an Instax camera, which takes like little photos, and they're sticky. So you could make collages going around. But have a look as well at the Graphic 45 YouTube channel. They've had one of their club kits, and they show ways of sort of adding flip spaces sort of on the backs here. So you can flip it up and have photos underneath. I quite like the idea of just using pockets and things, but you know, add what you want. So I hope you've enjoyed that tutorial, and I hope it's given you another idea of how to assemble one of the tunnel cards. Not tunnel cards, tunnel albums. So thank you for watching, and hopefully I'll even get a chance to take all the waste from this and turn them into a pyramid album. So keep an eye for that. So you can see it's just a case of flips. You can probably work it out yourself with just pockets on every page and just working up. But I didn't use the tiniest one. I think I started at aperture number 2. So that's the only thing. And I did use just one extra piece. So all that was covered with just one piece, using the same technique I did on page 1 and 2. There's I was cutting this, cut the first one out, and then from the aperture I cut the next bit out and the next bit out. But hopefully I'll have a chance to show you how to do that as well. So there she is. You can see her face coming together. So thank you for watching. Please leave a comment to let me know what you thought of this, and hit that thumbs up if you enjoyed this video. So thank you for watching, and happy crafting.